Good morning, guys. So it's currently the 17th November 2022. So I've been asked, when will I put a stream together next? And if I'm honest, there hasn't really been that much to say since the last stream. Okay, so I think obviously from my personal point of view, there's a lot of things that need to happen. There's a lot of things still happening, and I think it all comes down to where we are in this much bigger picture, right? I think the assumption was, if you've been following the likes of Moon Carl and Plan B, we'd be seeing 200,000, 135k, back last year if you're following Plan B. Moon Carl I think has estimated 6 million in terms of Bitcoin. I think, look, all you got to do is really think about what factors will drive any kind of move, right? Let alone crazy call type moves. The assumption for many is that big players coming into this space will drive the price up, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Eventually, the price will move on up. But in the early phases, the bigger players coming in are going to want to profit from such a move, right? So the general assumption from the retail is big players coming in, price goes up. The reality is big players coming in, price will be reduced to give them the better deal as a whole. Okay. Now, on that particular topic, one of the factors that you really need to take into consideration when looking at these charts is COT data. Okay. Now, in terms of COT data, the one thing that we're really looking for is some kind of indication that the accumulation phase has actually happened. Okay. So what I'm going to look at is, in terms of leverage funds at the moment, we have to take this into account because this is a representation of the bigger players in the space, right? It's only a small sample size in the grand scheme of things, but in essence, it's something definitely worth considering when looking at, are we nearly there yet, right? Now, for me, there's a couple of things, right? We've got this low in and around here, which was around May, June time, in terms of then some kind of rally up, right? So May, June, we can say safely that an accumulation phase has started, right? Now, the only issue with that is the shorts are so vast that the profit taken hasn't completed yet. Okay. Now, again, let's look at this in terms of the charts and the time frames, right? So we're going to go back, May, June, right? Oh, it's 2021. Let's come forward a little bit. May, June. Okay. So May, June, right? Around this kind of time frame. Anything beyond this level. Okay. Let me get rid of these a second. So anything beyond this level, right? The accumulation phase has started, right? Now, many people are going to say similar things. If the sell off still hasn't finished, why wouldn't the big boys sell up and around, 30, 40, 50, 60k, right? The reality is these guys were the ones buying in and around this level over here, right? So you've got levels down low, right? That could be, 1,000, 2,000, 4,000. It doesn't really matter, right? The reality is what they've done, they've held on to the longer term position and rallied the move up. Now, along the way, they've accumulated better positions, bigger positions, other companies coming in because, like I said, this is only a sample size, right? What happened then was we had this in terms of a reaccumulation, right? And at this particular point, there would have been some of the early sales off, but not all of the early sales off, okay? Which meant they had enough ammo left to take up to the first real distribution, right? And this was obviously the rocket call that I posted. This was the reason why the UTAD was there. Many people were seeing this as an accumulation phase, whereas the reality was it was out and out distribution. We had obviously the AR reaction from this high, which was the real trick in terms of spotting that as the distribution. Okay. What we then done was we come on down, right? Now, again, in the much, much bigger picture, this was actually another reaccumulation, okay? Now you can see what's happening there. Really nice zone, right? Now, at this particular move, you could see very early on, right, as early as August, you could see that we were likely to get a truncation on the fifth in terms of the Elliott wave move, right? And this being now the fifth for me as a bigger move, right? Which was a weekly 5, monthly 3. Okay, so that's the area that I was interested in as a whole, right? If you run your fibs from this level, 1, 2, 3, what you'll find is, I can't remember if this is a 1,618 or a 2,618. You'll actually get the perfect form of retracement right back into a smaller little zone, top half of the bigger zone, and then ultimately the rally on up right to finish. Now, again, I've had the question over and over, why wasn't this one the fifth, right, and not this one? And that just comes down to personal preference. I didn't like that move being. I actually liked inside this final leg, right? A nice little rally, a drop, a really large rally, a 4 and a 5 to finish with, right? That was the reason for me that I like that, right? But it's kind of happened now, right? So what we got to look at is why we were looking at the levels going just above that 65k or the previous all-time high, right? And that's where we were aiming for. Why, right? Now the logic for that was there were going to be many new retail buyers, right, jumping in the marketplace with the assumption that this was going off to your plan B forecast, your Moon Carl forecast. Everybody was going to be wealthy, right? Now, one of the things that I've talked about this morning in our Discord channel is I've just been reading a book called The Psychology of Money, which is a really, really interesting, fascinating book, if I'm honest. But the one thing that I've mentioned this morning is that the average American cannot put $400 to one side in an emergency, right? And that is kind of baffling, right? The reality is over $450 per year is spent by the average individual on playing the lottery, right? So you can't afford $400 in emergency, but $450 is fine to play the lottery, right? That kind of sums up the the player, I guess, in terms of the current retail space when we come into looking at Bitcoin and crypto as a whole, right? The challenge that you have with that is a lot of people thought they could come in, put $100 and now it's worth 100 million, right? And when you're listening to people like Moon Carl, selling the dream, this guy's living off YouTube views, nothing else, right? You've got Plan B, 2 million followers. And the reality is, he's shilling affiliate links for Bybit, right? These guys are not traders, right? They've clever marketing. I appreciate that. But ultimately, they have no clue when it comes to actually reading the charts, right? Their whole purpose is affiliate links, YouTube views, and anything to gain followers, right? It's the blind leading the blind, right? They're looking for the lottery players in the field. Once you start to appreciate that things like this happen, and the big boys know this, right? When I talk about big boys, I'm talking about Composite Man, I'm talking about the COT data. These are, the big players, the guys that are playing by the hundreds of millions in terms of the levels, right? So when I was seeing this move coming up, and I posted in August, look, we're going to get a truncation on this move. There's loads of liquidity. There was going to be an awful lot of buyers in and around the previous all-time high because people are looking for security, right? People are looking for comfort. And if a deal looks too good to be true, it often is. Okay, that's the problem. So if you then come back to where we were heading next, right? The assumption was we'd come back into this zone, right? And we kind of did, and we spent a bit of time there, right? Now, again, think of the logic in this. Let me change my pen color, right? Think of the logic in this. We now come down from a liquidity zone, right? An all-time high we've just created, right? People are scared. They are buying every single dip, right? Again, following Moon Carl, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. MMC crypto, was saying, oh, I'm going to put in millions at 69k. Look how many millions the guy would have lost on his demo account, right? And that's the problem, right? You've got real money is only following fake demo accounts on these influencers, right? As a professional trader, as soon as you understand this, you can appreciate where these levels become valuable, right? If you've got buyers buying every dip, right? This dip creates liquidity. That liquidity creates the next drop, right? Now, a lot of people would have seen this as the bottom stop in action. Look at where we stopped. We stopped in that zone, right? Literally touching the zone. We come back up, right? Creating liquidity, right? It's the perfect scenario when you know what you're looking for, okay? Now, the next thing is, on this particular move, when we got down to these kind of levels, right, and back into the zone, we could see a larger redistribution play there, right? So these are small little moves, right, creating the 5. So we have by here a 5, right? We probably have within this a 3, right? I'm going to probably put it something like this, right? Which means we got a 5-3-5 move, right, at best, right? Now, that doesn't mean that it's over, right? That just means that the first move, if we were to get a 5, a 3, let's come down and we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we come all the way to 5, right? That doesn't mean that this market, in terms of the bear move, is done. It also doesn't mean that we have to go any deeper, right? It just means we need to keep retail in a state of uncertainty, right? And that's really where we are, why we are where I think we are, okay? So when we look at the much bigger picture, right, we're not going to be shooting off for this being A, B, C, and we're done, right? And now we're off to the moon. 6 million, here we go. That isn't quite as simple as that, right? In terms of this move down, let's just assume that this is a much, much bigger A move, right? And we've had the first leg of an A move. It doesn't mean that we're shooting off to B, right? And I've had this conversation recently. The reality is there's going to be liquidity in and around this zone again, right? There's also going to be small pockets of liquidity. So it's going to depend on how big the charts are, right? In terms of COT data, how big the position sizes are, and how much they want to get off, right? Off the books. The reality is the big boys are still accumulating, right? And it's still, a way to go yet. They also still need to take profits from the positions down low, right? So the grand scheme of things, these guys, if they were to do that up at 65, 69k, the chart would have just gone. Let me get rid of some of these drawings, right? Just make it a bit easier to show. Just get rid of all of these actually. I'll leave that on there for now. Okay. So in essence, right? If now the big boys have come in and they've got buy positions down low, right? They've taken profits along the way. They've taken profits along the way. They've taken profits along the way, right? The reality is, when they've come up and taken this, these guys are not looking for the same highs that the retails are searching for, right? They're looking for an X percentage return on their gains, right? It's Christmas bonuses. It's, it's a tactical game, right? It's not as simple as saying, let's catch the bottom, let's kind of, sell out at the high. These guys are taking, positions, right, in something like this, right? That's what these guys are comfortable with, right? This is what they want. They don't want these, right? They're going to let that, for the clowns looking for the tops, right? The reality is the profit is made in the middle section. So knowing full well this is the case, right? These guys would have been taking positions off the table and adding new positions, even at this position, right? Now, people will say to me when it comes to COT, this move up, the big boys are getting wrecked because they're selling. Who's selling to the retail? Okay, there's the question. Who's selling to the retail, right? That's the big boys selling for the little players to enter knowing that the price is about to fall. Okay, so we've done that. We've moved on up, right? Now, in this position, we've got Moon Carl buying the dip, We've got MMC, buy in the dip. We've got plan B, well, actually forecasting we're off to God knows what price, right? And then ultimately, all of these dips have been sold into by the leverage funds. Okay. So you've got these leverage funds selling to the people following Moon Carl, MMC, Plan B. And we wonder why, crypto's lost so much of its market share, market value as a whole. It hasn't lost anything. It's the big boys buying, private jets for their wives for Christmas, right? This is the reality of the situation, right? This is where we are. So when we look at COT going down, right, the chances are the price is rallying up, right? However, these guys are still accumulating and they require to profit take between now and probably Christmas, the end of the year, right? And therefore, the selling position will happen in every little rally, okay? Every little rally. So if the price is coming down, the chances are they are just buying, right? If the price is going up, the chances are they are selling and buying, okay? So what we need to look at now is to understand, like I said, whether or not this is, a rally to be, right? And this is obviously the bigger picture. So we've got an A bottom, a B, right? And therefore, I do feel C will come on back down and stay down, right? Now, don't run out and jump the gun. I'm not saying for a second, A is down and B's off and C. I'm not saying that, right? I'm saying the reality is understanding where we are in the much bigger picture will help appreciate where we're likely to go next and why. Okay. Now, for me, there's a couple of things still. I didn't feel we would stay down below the 19,800, so the previous one level, okay, down and around whatever that was over on the left. I didn't think that we would stay down here for as long as we did, right? I've always said about an evil wick. I've always assumed that we would stay around that 19K, kind of monthly closes being around 19K, getting an evil wick down to this, 15, 16K level potentially, and then we kind of move, right? Now, again, I'm putting myself into composite man's shoes. Why would I want to stay in this current situation for a longer period of time? I really want to stay in this position because I have more money than you guys trying to buy every dip, right? So when you buy the dip and you buy it with your last penny, and I'm buying the dip thinking I'm adding another million to my position, the reality is the longer that this goes on, the better chance of accumulating by the bucketful, right? And the more likely you as a retail trader is ultimately wanting to step out of the market in terms of uncertain times and fear of what could happen next, right? And that's the game, right? And there we go. So I think in the grand scheme of things, right, this is where, like I said, I think we are. This is the reason that I haven't really done anything in terms of, new posts, new streams. I'm not looking to make money off YouTube views. That's not the game for myself or Paul. From a trading perspective, people said even this time last year, oh, we've missed once in a lifetime opportunity. Bitcoin's going here and Bitcoin's going there, and it was, well, no, this will come again. And if you look at where we were last year, back at these lows here, we're actually under that price right now. So the reality is, what once in a lifetime opportunity lasts over a year. Okay, so just to kind of summarize and recap, a lot of people entered the crypto space assuming there was better odds in this game than playing the lottery, right? Composite Man knows this as a game and will understand and appreciate that the longer the accumulation phase goes on, the more opportunities to acquire under the radar will actually happen and giving them time to move. There's Christmas bonuses to be had in terms of the profit taken, so just keep that in mind as well in terms of any kind of rally from here, right? And ultimately, I do feel this is still the larger scale fall. Although, if I was pure Elliott and an Elliott technician in this, I'd probably invalidate the count now in terms of this price staying below 19.8 for so long. Okay. However, in the grand scheme of things, there's still a monthly close to be had, right? And I feel that right now, the value area has actually become in and around that 19K, right? So I'm going to put 19, I think it was 19.8 is the level. Let's just put it roughly there, look, right? I'll put that as, I don't know, green for value, right? I'll make it a bit bigger so it's obvious to see. And therefore, the value area for me, 19.8, suggests that this is a much, much bigger phase, right? Let's drag it to the center, right? This is a much, much bigger phase in terms of accumulation. Okay, so that's where we are. I'm going to leave it like that for today. It's been a while since doing one. I'm not keen on doing one anytime soon. There's nothing to say other than what I've just said. Put a lot of information in this. If there's a lot of things that you were uncertain of, what I'll also do is I'll put the free Skillshare course into the link as well, or into the description below. Actually, what I'll do is I'll see if I can pop that up now, into the right hand corner, as I finish obviously this video. And from there, in essence, guys, what I think you need to look at is getting yourself ready for when this move actually takes shape. Okay, so until the next video, I will see you again. Thanks for watching. Cheers, guys.